by Understood. Another episode. Got my esteemed co-host, Lonte Wilkins.
Yeah.
I hope that everybody enjoyed the content that we've been putting out so far. If you like the content, please like us and subscribe and hit the bell for alerts. And having said that, we're gonna move into today's show.
Okay. So walk us
How
through.
you feeling?
I'm all right. I'm doing okay. I'm maintaining. Doing pretty fair for a square, as they say.
Okay. The talk of the net right now is Monique. I don't even know if you saw the interview with Monique.
Look, I seen clips. I ain't get to dive into the whole interview, but yeah, I mean, she been talking, so yeah, I'm pretty interested in what she had to say. So tell me what's going on. What's going on with Monique?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, today's show, we're gonna dive into first, we're gonna go into the certain section, at least a certain section of DC crime bill that I find to be, one of the more controversial provisions among others.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about a part of Monique's interview because there were several parts, that caught my attention. But one of the things that she said, it particularly stood out to me. And finally, we will talk about we will discuss another episode of the DEI. And
Yeah.
right, and those same sisters who had the venture capitalist fund,
Okay.
what's going on with them down in the 11th Circuit, because I think that that's important for everybody to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, everything going on with Monique been, that's been the talk of the town. Or I would say the talk of the net. Just all over the internet and all over the social media. That's just been, everything, this everywhere I look, that's been what's going on. So I guess this is the age of tell all. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
That's what they said.
But I don't begrudge. Yeah, I mean, and and I don't begrudge the sister, for sharing, for her story and what she feels was done wrong to her. So, it's her right to do that. So, and we gotta let her have that. And I have no problem with it at all. So, I would just say, man, we'll probably go into, detail about that on another episode. But as far as some of the other things that, that she said about different things, but the sister telling her truth. And when somebody's telling the truth, man, we don't have many truth tellers in this world.
Man.
So, when you come across a truth teller, man, I would just say, man, let them tell their truth, and that's just what it is. Before we dive into our topics, I wanted to, have a brief discussion about there was this thing I saw on I don't know if you saw Eleanor Holmes Norton. She just recently she pushed a bill before Congress, and it's the federal government Advertising Equity and Accountability Act.
Okay.
And uh, for me personally, I it kind of validated, something that I felt already about, when I talk about systems and how systems are only good as the people who operate those systems. And if you have people who operate systems who are who come with these biases, or these or these racial tendencies, then that's what the system is going to reflect. And so let's take a look at the text of this, this bill that she just put before Congress.
Okay.
But the basically the text of it is she was introducing the Federal Government Advertising Equity and Accountability Act, and that will require all federal agencies to include in their annual budget request to Congress the amount they spent on advertising contracts with small disadvantaged businesses, otherwise known as SDBs,
Yeah.
and businesses owned by minorities and women. And you know what I found to be interesting, you know, as everyone looks over the bill, and I'll make sure that they have an opportunity to see it, because she urged her colleagues to support this bill. Um, is that the when people talk about systematic racism, you have a certain crowd, who tells you that you're crying wolf. But I want people to listen to this, and I want them to listen, carefully, because they did a study. She requested a study, and over a 5-year period, the federal government, right?
Okay.
They spent more than $5 billion on advertising for me, media advertising. And out of that 5 billion, you know how much black media got?
I you know I want to say how much because I heard it was 1%, but how much was that 1%? You know.
Ding, 1%. We got we got basically approximately $51 million over a 5-year period. So when people tell you that there's no such thing as systemic racism, then there's so many other instances that validate what it is that you're saying. When people tell you don't believe your lying eyes.
Mhm.
But me, I'm big on mathematics.
Mhm.
The numbers tell a story.
Yeah.
And I would just hope that people, when they hear this, that they understand that you're not going crazy when you see how systems work, and you see how systems work to disadvantage particular groups of people. You're not going crazy. And don't ever let anyone tell you that you're going crazy, because a system is only good as the person that's operating that system. And I think that this is just another example of what we mean, when we say that racism is a systemic disease, it's an institutional disease. And we're not talking about the institution as a separate entity so much as we're talking about the people who operate these institutions. It's a disease. And I would just encourage people to follow the bill,
Mhm.
look at who supports it and who doesn't. And but for what I wanted to see is the proof is in the pudding. And someone would have a hard time explaining how over a 5-year period we only got 1% of $5 billion when you have all of these black media companies, entities that are basically, I won't say that they're struggling, but we could use that money. And so if we only got 1%, then where the other 91% went, or 80+% went. So we don't even have to go into that. And but yeah, I mean that's just something that I would encourage people to look into. And,
Yeah. Okay.
and I'm pretty sure you heard about your boy Trump.
Okay. Okay. What's going on with Trump?
Well, he just lost the appeal for
Yeah.
immunity.
Yeah.
Me personally, um, uh, the Federal Court of Appeals for DC, they rejected. He had claims. He was alleging that he had blanket immunity, which blanket immunity basically says that basically anything that you do while you're president, you pretty much it's you basically get a clean slate.
Yeah.
Uh, they rejected that.
Mhm.
Uh, they also rejected his argument that in order for him to be convicted of a crime, that he would have to be impeached first.
Mhm.
They rejected that. And finally, they rejected his claim that Article 3 judges, which are, all federal judges, those are Article 3 judges. Article 3 judges, basically a judge that had been appointed by the Senate.
Mm.
Uh, that Article 3 judges, uh, they lack the power to review anything that he's done under the separation of powers.
Yeah.
And they struck all of that stuff down. And for me, the reason why I brought it up is because, for one, the arguments, they were patently frivolous. Those were frivolous arguments.
Okay.
Because I don't think that anyone in their right mind would ever believe that a president would have unfettered immunity to do acts with impunity. You
Okay.
know, you are a president. You're not a king.
Yeah.
You're not a dictator. You may ascribe to be those things, but that's not what you are.
Okay.
And as much as I may disagree with how our system of government is ran, we do have a system of checks and balances. And those checks and balances were put in place so that one branch wouldn't be able to exert any kind of supreme authority over another branch. So
So
I
you think that the president shouldn't have no like immunity as it relates to like because I mean, from my understanding, I thought the president becomes a sovereign, like it's a sovereign position. So
well,
I'm not quite sure what sovereign mean, and I'm not sure because I don't know where they draw the line at. That's where I'm more looking at because I'm not saying I don't really. I'm curious about the law as it relates to this because when Trump starts talking about some sort of immunity, I'm trying to understand. Well, what? Okay, we talk. All right, let's say this: they over there killing people in overseas and things like that, right? It's
mhm.
not no crime when it's over. You see what I'm saying? So at what point are because that I mean we
well,
locally that would be a conspiracy. It could be a whole bunch of murder charges. So tell me where the sovereignty thing in
Well, the
this.
Supreme Court, they have given the president immunity with respect to, certain civil actions. But
Mhm,
we're talking about crimes. Now, when the presidents, when they retaliate against, for example, a foreign entity overseas,
mhm.
they will. That's not something that they will be held accountable for. In the context of criminal law.
Okay,
Uh, I don't think that any experienced prosecutor would ever bring that charge against the president for like actions that happens overseas.
okay,
Uh, but what his lawyers were basically arguing was that his immunity should be extended to all actions, that are committed over here. Now,
okay.
overseas, he would be basically charged with protecting the United States. So it that would be a tough sell to make an argument that he committed a crime overseas, and that and that deals that basically would get into all kind of what they call extraterritorial arguments. Basically, it wouldn't happen. Uh,
It's interesting. It's still interesting when I think about it because the borders is separating his immunity. Because you see him right here saying, okay, well, if this happened, because he could theoretically be protecting the country if he said they cheated with the elections. Let's just they cheated with these elections, they cheated, and that's an act of war, let's say, and they have foreign influence. So if it happened on this soil, at
mhm.
what point are you separating these lines of because it happened over there over like that it's
But
blurred.
I think that what makes it different over here is that when you have court after court after court after court after court after court after court
Yeah.
tell you that there has been no subversion with the election, that now just because you continue to repeat something, it doesn't make it true. I mean, just think, America has long repeated the lie that this country wasn't founded on slavery and white supremacy. That doesn't make it true just because they continue to say it. because our lives represent something that's, that's different, and that's something that I'll actually touch on later on, when I was listening, to Monique. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't have immunity to commit criminal acts on this soil, and basically do those, commit those acts with impunity. That's not how the Constitution works.
Okay.
And I'm glad that they reached the decision that they reached, because I think that what people don't understand is for them to come with a different conclusion, it would have been a situation where you're talking about presidents being allowed to have, if we're out protesting something, that they could actually, order us, protesters to be attacked.
Yeah.
So that just opens up a whole nother Pandora's box. And me personally, for me knowing the law, I understood that the arguments were frivolous.
Uh-huh.
And so I wasn't surprised, that they reached
Mhm.
the decision, that they reached. So, but that's something that, that we could talk about ad nauseum, and at a later date, we will revisit that issue, because it's not over yet, because the
Yeah.
Supreme Court still has to make the determination of whether or not they want to grant cert, a certiorari, which is a review by the Supreme Court from what the Court of Appeals found. So yeah, that's not, that episode is pretty much far from over. So I'm pretty sure that we will be revisiting that.
Mhm.
And my last hot take is Jay-Z, his comments at the Grammys. Um, I found his comments to be interesting. Let's take a listen. Uh,
She doesn't take Sippy Cup, and she has her own Grammys. The proud father was referencing Blue Ivy's 2021 win for Best Music Video for her mom Beyonce's Brown Skinned Girl. And while Beyonce is the most awarded artist in Grammy history, her hubby took this time on stage to call out the Recording Academy for one of the biggest snubs in her career. I don't want to embarrass this young lady, but she has more Grammys than everyone and never won Album of the Year. So even by your own metrics, that doesn't work. Think about that. The most Grammys, never won Album of the Year. That doesn't work. Beyonce has also been nominated for 88 competitive Grammy Awards, winning 33 of them. But even though the singer has been nominated 6 times for Album of the Year, she's never won that category. Jay-Z has been nominated for 88 competitive Grammy Awards, winning 24 of them.
Yeah. Me personally, I think that we get caught up on these white institutions. I mean, we have our own awards.
Yeah.
And I think that for one, I'm not going to say that I was surprised to see that there were only 3 Black women, that had won the award since it was introduced in 1959. That was you had Natalie Cole, Whitney Houston in 94, Natalie Cole was in 92, and of course you had Lauryn Hill in 99 with the miseducation of Lauryn Hill. So you're talking about 99, that's 25 years. So you mean to tell me that, all of these sisters put all of this music out over the years? I won't even go down, the list of sisters who have been nominated since then, who didn't win, I'm pretty sure that people can imagine. But I just think that we we constantly, talk about how we are aggrieved by certain white institutions, right?
Mhm.
But yet we continue to go back to them and seek validation.
There you go.
And I think that at some point, right, we have to understand that, listen, you keep arguing with these institutions, to do right. And at some point, you have to understand that maybe it's just not in them to do right.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've created our own. You have BET awards, for example. You have Soul Train awards. Take pride in your own, what your own peers have issued you an award recognizing your musical genius. And I think that if you keep setting the standard for your excellence in what white institutions say, then you're going to be continually disappointed. We don't need those institutions for validation. We never have.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
It's great when they acknowledge you whenever they acknowledge you, but we gotta put more respect on our culture.
yeah, and and I would just encourage people, especially this is a theme, which I don't believe in Black History Month, and I'll talk about that later. But because I think that every month is essentially Black History Month, because there would be no America without our contributions. But I think that, as with any other facet of American culture, if you look at music, our imprints are all over the culture. And for years, a lot of people, they don't know who, for example, people know Elvis Presley. You know Elvis Presley. You probably never heard an Elvis Presley song, but you probably didn't know that one of his biggest hits was taken from a Black woman, Big Mama Thornton. Big Mama Thornton sung a song about her man was a hound dog. Well, guess what? The song didn't become popularized until it was given to Elvis Presley. When he sung the song Hound Dog, now everybody knew Hound Dog, but nobody would have ever thought to ascribe that level of genius to this sister. And it's been something that's happened repeatedly. When you look at rock and roll and Chuck Berry, his contributions, Little Richard's contribution. You look at country music, Charlie Pride. So it's just a recurring thing. And I think that at some point we have to understand that you don't need validation from these institutions when they've shown you repeatedly that your genius will not be rewarded or it will not be received properly.
Okay.
And I made a I made a vow that I wouldn't use as much profanity. So I won't tell you about what I feel about the Grammys. I would say that it starts with the word F.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
Grant.
exactly. Because we have our own institutions, and I think that we should value our own institutions more and not put so much stock in what the Grammys have failed to do, because they have shown you repeatedly that they don't put the proper honor in your music, in your genius. So why would you keep coming back to them for validation? And why would you even allow their lack of validation of your musical genius to send you somewhere else, as far as like this dark place? I'm pretty sure Beyonce doesn't care. I just, Jay-Z, he felt enough about it, to mention it. But me personally, I just look at it like this here. Let's take that energy and put it into our own institutions and continue to build those institutions up, because I don't think that we need their institutions. We just don't. They've already shown you that they don't value you as a human being and they don't value your contributions. So why do you keep coming back to them repeatedly, asking for their validation when they've shown you they don't care? So,
well, I mean, I respect that, and Jay-Z said something that caught my attention. He said, "Just you gotta keep showing up. You gotta keep showing up." Like, and this is opinion based. It's like it's people. It's subjective. It's not in a factual realm, and it's a measurement based on subjective beliefs. So, we can't really. I mean, how could you? I mean, asking a white person to critique our culture is insanity. Like, I mean, it's just insanity to me, honestly. Like, they give more value to that. It's just insanity to me. So, I'm not asking them to understand this. I won't ask them to understand this. I won't make their opinion matter, but so much right here because you don't understand me. One, I'm more interested in the people that understand than me giving me those salutes.
Oh yeah, and I would just say, if you value your sanity, then I wouldn't give them that kind of power if you value your sanity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
value your sanity. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
There
So
you
I
go.
wouldn't, I wouldn't give them that kind of power over my sanity where I'm looking for their validation. But I digress.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you've heard like everybody else about the DC crime bill. We've been
talking about it. We've been
well,
talking.
yeah, it's not law yet, but yesterday it passed another milestone, and me personally, I think that it's going to become law. Um, I care I care about the bill as a whole, um, because I think it represents something, and it's the old saying, "Be careful what you wish for."
Mhm.
And I don't think that there are a whole lot of black folks out there who actually are a fan of the bill. You do have some black folks who, they value public safety, and I value public safety. I do. But I just, I think that I'm not willing to trade public safety for the future of my community and the emotional and physical well-being of the residents of my community, because I think that public safety can be achieved another way, and I also think that that as I've said before, the definition of crime, what they consider crime, is too narrow.
Mhm.
But once again, I digress. I There was the part of the bill that I really wanted to discuss, and that I want people to really, really hone in on, is that part of the bill that deals with these drug-free zones.
Okay.
Uh, because I think that similar to what happened in New York with the stop and frisk, these drug-free zones, they raise serious Fourth Amendment questions, extremely serious Fourth Amendment questions, and I don't think that a lot of people know that the Mayor Bowser, she was already put on notice by multiple legal scholars, and I want to show the viewers what these legal scholars sent directly to Mayor Bowser, telling her about the constitutional problems that these drug-free zones would wrought. In essence, dear Mayor, on behalf of the Sentencing Project, I'm writing to express concern regarding the Addressing Crime Trends Now Act, which, according to your announcement, would reinstate the ability of Metropolitan Police Department to declare drug-free zones. Instead, we urge you to move beyond the failed tactics of the drug war and pursue public health responses to drug use. As such, according to then Council Member David Grasso, who introduced the bill to repeal the act, the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety had reached the conclusion that the law was likely unconstitutional. That conclusion was consistent with concerns expressed by legal scholars that anti-loitering drug-free laws represent a clear departure from long-standing constitutional principles. Anti-loitering drug-free zones perpetuate the failed war on drugs. The drug war has resulted in a skyrocketing number of Americans, namely Black, incarcerated for drug offenses from 40,900 in 1980 to 430,900 in 2019, and for increasingly lengthy periods of time. The United States' choice to prioritize punishment over evidence-based responses to substance use disorders has also cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is a letter that was sent to her by these scholars who were writing her on behalf of the Sentencing Project. And when I saw it, you know, it automatically brought back certain feelings in me, you know, that I felt in the 90s, because we've seen this movie before. We've seen this movie before. And I would just caution people, especially people that look like us, that when you unleash this kind of power, state-sanctioned power on these communities, it very rarely results in the community. Put it this way, I would just say like this here: they feel when it comes to us that the ends justify the means. And I look at the communities in DC and even around the United States, but namely in DC, that have been wiped out. They have been wiped out because you unleashed the full authority of the government on those communities. And you did it with little regard for their constitutional protections. And answer this question. Remember just a year, 2-3 years ago, when we turned on the news and we kept hearing about the opioid crisis in rural communities?
Yeah.
How many times did we hear these rural communities agreeing to unleash the full power of the federal government or the state governments on the citizens of those communities?
It was a public health crisis when it was their community. It was a public health crisis. They did not acknowledge any criminal behavior. They did put some direction at the pharmaceutical companies. I did see some leaning in a criminal lane for some pharmaceutical companies. I think one of them that was filling a lot of prescriptions at one point in these communities. However, I don't recall any like street sweeping tactics as in our community.
But we've seen this before. And it's like this. You're giving police the power to determine who's a lawbreaker and who's not. Now, the media does such an excellent job of vilifying our youth.
Yeah.
That, it's amazing if people see our kids and don't see predators. It's amazing.
But you know what I'm pushing back on though right now? The media definitely did an excellent job in criminalizing Black youth and our people. And what's additionally nerve-wracking and irritating to me is a lot of our people in our community doing a lot of this too. Because there's a lot of people that was pushing for that crime bill that they essentially it's a lot of people in our community that's pushing for this, and they don't know the consequences because out of emotionalism, and a lot of people is upset. It's a lot of carjacking, it is a lot of violence, and I do think that this stuff is a problem. But I knew that this thing was going to be a problem as they were displacing these DC residents, as they were keeping these young people out of financial, like these kids are suffering. Youth homelessness is a real thing in this city, in Washington D.C. So my thing is, this was inevitable. So, and the biggest thing that I got with this crime bill, honestly, is that they talk about accountability to one way. They don't talk about accountability to what they're doing to us. They talk about how we're responding to what they have done to us. And that's my problem when they start talking about accountability. I do not like them keep criminalizing these young people. I despise it. And I despise a lot of people in our community that's been supporting this stuff, and these bourgeois Negroes. All of us sick of the crime. But if you go and talk about this crime, you need an accountability. You need to talk about accountability both ways. You need to talk about the lack of access that these young people got. And that's my thing about this crime bill. I'm not saying let me stop, because I get upset on.
Well, no, I mean, listen, it's something that evokes a lot of emotion. I would just say this,
Yeah.
because remember we talked about it last week. That in the article that that just came out in the Washington Informer, where the guy was where he was elaborating on a program that was proposed by my brother Tone about giving the youth jobs. There is a direct correlation between youth employment and crime.
Absolutely.
And for me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. To piggyback on what you were saying, we continuously talk about accountability, right?
Yeah.
And my thing is this, and I would ask Brooke Pinto, because she's not even from DC, you're from Connecticut. But I would just ask you, when you talk about the accountability that needs to take place in these communities, I would ask you, when will the United States take accountability for what has been done and for what continues to be done? Because for me, I think it's criminal. It's criminal, and this is something that the news, they don't, the news, they don't sensationalize how homes in our neighborhoods have been undervalued for decades, and how that affects wealth. They don't sensationalize the poor schools, the amount of money that's spent on our students as opposed to federal to inmates, right? These are things that never come up. They don't speak about the lack of employment opportunities. I mean, valid, concrete for adults in some of these communities. And this is what I mean when I say that they have a narrow definition of crime. Because when you continue to do these things, or when you continue to fail to do these things, then I have to reach certain conclusions that you basically are not going to do them. But why is it that these things are not sensationalized? Why is it that I could watch a news channel every day and you can show me the statistics on youth crime, but I've never seen an episode of news where they talk about why the government in DC only allocates $20,000 per student, but you allocate $40,000 a year per inmate. Like, what signal does that send? And if we are a nation of laws, if we are supposed to be a nation of accountability, then I just think that until we go back to the very essence of how all of this began and begin to correct some of those wrongs, we're going to continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over. And then what's going to happen is those communities now where you see those signs up that say drug-free zones, my bold prediction is that 10, 15, 20 years from now, those communities will be thoroughly gentrified. the very people, and I don't think that all of the people in those communities supported it, support every facet of this crime bill. But some of those very people that supported it, they will be among those who are displaced.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I just want people to understand that eventually these drug-free zones, they're going to be challenged in court the same way that the stop and frisk was challenged in New York. I want to say the judge's name was Kyra Shinlin, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
who declared that the stop and frisk that it violated the Fourth Amendment.
It's unconstitutional, but it's already understood. But one thing about this country, it has a reputation. This government has a reputation of violating you and then saying, "Oops, my bad."
Well, I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
I'll end this point like this. A lot of these police, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these officers, these were the same officers who ridiculed the few officers who decided to come out and basically criticize Trump for his role in January 6th. A lot of the other, a majority of the police department, they were pretty much for that demonstration. Mm-hmm. I say that because if you deride your fellow officers, just think they don't get derided when they come in the inner city and beat the hell out of some kid. Mm-hmm. The blue wall of silence is applicable then. But these are the same individuals mm-hmm. that you are unleashing on these communities. These people who come with these with these notions of bias. Mm-hmm. And you're going to unleash these people in our communities on our kids. And there has to be a presumption when you do that all of our kids are inherently criminal. Because when these police come in that community and they see 2 or 3 kids walking to the store who may have just gotten out of school, they don't see 3 kids that just got out of school. They see 3 potential criminals, 3 potential predators. And you can thank the news for that. I just hope that people will understand that the Constitution applies to us too. Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid to assert your constitutional rights. And I would say that my bold prediction is that very soon that bill is going to be challenged in court, and I would be surprised if it wasn't stricken as being unconstitutional. Yeah, exactly. So, and I'll be, the one who said, "Hey, I told you so." Oh. So, we shall see. We shall see. But
what's the consequences after it's unconstitutional? That's my problem. My problem is that it's going to be ruled unconstitutional. The hands-on deck error violated. When I tell you, we grew up in Washington D.C. You was locked up in this era. You from the RICO era. We talked about what happened in your era, mm-hmm. But the era that I grew up in, where we talking about all hands on deck and stopping first, and we coming back to that because it didn't just happen in New York; it happened in Washington D.C.
Oh, for sure.
And when I tell you, it's been ruled unconstitutional. But what happened? What's the consequences for how they violated and paved the way, as you said, for gentrification? Because that's all they did with these war on drugs. They just paved the way to criminalize communities and then replace these communities with whiter residents. And that's what the answer was, and that's what they thought the answer was. And you know what my issue is with this? It's the same. I was looking on the news, and I seen the Israel-Palestine conflict. I seen all the Zionists or the Israeli occupants speaking on how the Palestinians just need to be exterminated. Like these people just need to go. Like it's nothing good for these people. And that's what I'm hearing right here in Washington, D.C. when I think about how they're talking about these youth. And it's the same exact thing. And I'm like, lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. And it bothers me so much that people are not seeing the correlation, because we do know that the Palestinian territory is under occupation by Israeli Zionist forces, but we do not look at this correlation as it relates to these DC people being gentrified and colonized and occupied right here in the city that they're from and being criminalized. So this is the same model that's happening over there, that's happening over here where these people are criminalized. And it makes me sick.
Well, I think that and that's a valid point. I think that what's going to happen when it's all said and done, when they look back 10, 15, 20 years from now, and they see that potentially another generation of juveniles have been wiped out, and they say, "Oh, we didn't know that stop and frisk or that the drug-free zone that it violated the Fourth Amendment." You know what they'll say? My bad, and
My
then we
bad.
just keep moving. But I think that at some point we have to stop looking to them. We have to ask ourselves, what do you do in response to it?
And there you go. That's what
And
I'm on. I'm standing on that.
this is why Malcolm, he gave us two choices: the ballot or the bullet. And people have to understand, and I implore the young people to understand that Mayor Bowser, she's only in power at your behest, because it's a lot of young people in DC. And they and when that sleeping giant is awoken, then if you want to remove her from power because her values no longer reflect your values, if they ever did, then you have the power to remove her.
You can,
but it has to start from somewhere. And I just hope, in bringing this to a close, I hope that 10, 15, 20 years from now, I just hope that it's not another generation of kids that are wiped out and that are sent to these federal prisons, that are sent to these rural areas, that I have no doubt, because I've been there, that I no doubt staffed by people who harbor white supremacist, ideologies. I just hope that it doesn't come to a point where we are bemoaning their absence from the community because of another cataclysmic mistake. I just hope that I think that more than hoping, I'm going to do my part to make sure that it doesn't happen. But I need for people to understand that that ballot is very powerful. And if you're tired of the Mayor Bowsers, if you're tired of the Brooke Pintos who only give you topical solutions to deep-rooted problems, then you have to vote them out. You have to vote them out because we've seen this before. And if it worked before, then why in the hell are we back at the same place again? It didn't work before because you keep trying to adjust. You are trying to address a problem that's deep-rooted with only topical solutions. So I just hope that people understand that, and hopefully we're not at this place 15, 20 years from now where people are looking back and saying, God damn, we've been hoodwinked, or we've been bamboozled, we've been had once again. But
it seemed like that's what that's the part that made me sick to stomach. That's what it seemed like we going. And you know what I'm doing? You know what I'm doing? I'm staying away from these people. I'm staying away from these people because I'm letting them know that I got a position against y'all. Because I feel like we got to stand up. My generation, my people, got to stand up for these young people. And I'm sick and tired of. And I'm not going to allow these people to keep criminalizing these young people, because I'm fighting the elders now. I'm fighting the people that supposed to be protecting these young people, and that's how I feel.
You have to, and that actually it leads me to Monique, because she said a lot of things during her interview. A lot of things that were sensational. And again, the sister speaking her truth, and I can't. I would never tell, especially a Black woman, not to speak their truth. So I have no problem, with her interview, none whatsoever. Now, me personally, I was actually attracted to a portion of the interview that I don't think a lot of people pay much attention to. But for me, it caught my attention because of how she said she felt as being a child, because it came up about her education and the lack thereof.
Mhm.
And what her take on it, it was interesting to me because it's something that I've heard over the years, when I was away. And it's something that I've heard even before then. And even though I graduated from high school, it's something that I felt. Let's take a listen to what she said.
Huh?
Want to go there? I did not have to wear that helmet, baby.
So,
yes.
Mon, as I sit here with you today, you didn't all of a sudden become this advanced. Why were you in that class?
I'm not going to play with you, Shannon. Okay, some of them damn words Cat was using, I was like, what? I said, oh, he's socking it to him. I never connected with school because I always felt like it wasn't adding up. So when you're trying to teach me about the Boston Tea Party, but people that look like me is at the bottom of the boat, I can't connect to what you're saying. I never connected to, because I always felt like something was off. When they were teaching me about history, we were always the savages and we were always the bad people. And then you saw these white people be all the heroes. And as a little girl, I said, something's not adding up. So I don't look at that as a bad thing. I just didn't connect with it. It made no sense to me.
So you never had a problem with the learning, but the disconnect was what they was teaching and what you actually saw. You like, what you teaching me is not what I actually see.
You know what, Shannon? It's a combination.
Okay.
It was a combination, okay? I wasn't grasping it and I didn't believe it. So it's a combination. And when you have a child that is full of energy and is sitting in a classroom that is closed in all day long, and you're trying to tell me all that I'm not, it just did not add up to me. It just did not make sense to me. So there's no shame to it. When people say, was you in the soul class? Yeah. We colored.
So when you...
Hey, baby, we colored. But don't overlook what you don't think is the package supposed to be.
Right.
See, again, we come back to the messenger. Nobody thought that I would be. And I'll go to my family. Like, nobody thought, not the fat one.
Part right there, for me, it kind of it made me stop, and it made me think about something, because I think that for a lot of our kids, there's been a lot of arguments about parents' rights, and this, for me, it's relevant during this Black History Month, because during this Black History Month, I find myself once again asking, who more so than us has contributed to America being what it is, and how can you delegate a people who have the level of contributions that we do to a country to 1 month? And I think that what she said is something that resonated with me, because I can't remember when I left high school, I had no idea of who James Baldwin was. I had no idea of who Ella Baker was. I had no idea of who Fannie Lou Hamer was, Ella Baker, Zora Neale Hurston. The list goes on. Chester Himes. There's a whole universe of Black excellence that we never learned of. And we get caught up in how when they say how these kids would feel, or making I don't want white children to feel bad, but I ask, the same way I asked before, if white kids in Germany that are in elementary school can learn about the Holocaust, then why in the hell can't our kids in elementary learn about not just slavery, but what America is.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in thinking about that, I said, you know, when I heard her comments, it sent me looking to for like different little points. And I was like, hold up, you know, I thought about the term "Make America Great Again,"
Mm-hmm.
and and for me, that's a historical term.
Mm-hmm.
And that historical term, it has implications on Black lives.
Mm-hmm.
So people, when you hear the term "Make America Great Again," who do you think about?
Man, it automatically make you when you think about great again, because it never been great for Black people. It makes you
But
feel.
when you hear the term, who do you think about? What individual do you think about when you hear the term?
I mean, it's Donald Trump.
Exactly. And would you be surprised if I told you that he wasn't even the first person who said "Make America Great Again"?
No, I'm not. I'm aware that it come from Ronald Reagan, right? It was his campaign.
Shop. Let's take a listen.
Okay.
Make them right. Our destiny is not our fate. It is our choice. And I'm asking you, as I ask all Americans, in these months of decision, please join me as we take this new path. You and your forebears built our nation. Now, please help us rebuild it. And together, we'll make America great again. Thank you very much.
Now, when I heard it,
Yeah.
you know, I was like, wow, you know, because a lot of people, you know, especially older Black folks, I used to hear older Black folks, you know, they say, ah, that goddamn Reagan, you know, and I wondered, you know, what they meant when they was like, ah, that goddamn Reagan, you know, damn, you know, why do they say it, you know, with so much passion, that goddamn Reagan, right? And you know, it made me do my own research.
Okay.
And what I found, it was disturbing because I could connect what he, you know, what I discovered with some of the things that I saw happening in America as a child in the 80s. So this was you know, the same Ronald Reagan that wanted to make America great again, right? This was the same Reagan who started his campaign in the town of Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what Philadelphia, Mississippi is historically known for?
No, tell me.
3 civil rights workers were killed there in the 60s.
Okay.
Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman. And it was symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it was just isolated, then I would give him the benefit of the doubt. But when he started talking about, you know, he was specifically put in the White House to bring the civil rights era to a screeching halt.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was symbolic for him to start his campaign off in the place where you had 3 civil rights workers murdered in the 60s. So if people say, ah, you know what, that's a stretch. Okay, well, I say, okay, you know what, we got that. I tell you what, I'll go to the next point. He was the same Ronald Reagan who opposed the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65. That's the same Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
He's the same Reagan when he was governor of California that opposed the federal government's Fair Housing Act.
Mm-hmm.
According to Ronald Reagan, and anyone who doubts what I'm saying, they can go to the archives. He said that people who want to discriminate against Negroes should have that right.
Mm-hmm.
They should have that right. That's the Ronald Reagan that I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is the Ronald Reagan who appointed. Now remember, Chief Justice rank was, which he would later be known, but he was just a regular Supreme Court justice when Reagan took office, but he was staunchly against desegregation. Ronald Reagan, he appointed him as the Chief Justice of the United States.
Mhm.
Okay. Then, this is the same Ronald Reagan who refused to support sanctions against the apartheid government in South Africa. So when you take all of these things together, right, these are things that for me, during the Black History Month, these things are relevant because you're telling me that you want to show me the same pictures of MLK, a Coretta Scott. You show me these pictures every year. It's like the same stories get regurgitated, right? But we never discuss in detail, right, our history and what was done throughout history to subvert us. But now guess what? After Ronald Reagan used the term, somebody else used it.
Mhm.
You know who else used it?
What's that?
Our old buddy, William Clinton.
Bill.
Good old Bill Clinton. He used the term
that together we can make America great again. I believe that together we can make America great again.
good old Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
I have I hate to use the word hate. I would just say I have a very strong dislike because I was actually directly impacted by his crime bill, and I was directly impacted by his mass incarceration policies.
Mhm.
So you know, for me, it was personal. It is personal. And because I saw the damage, I saw it on a personal level. You know, I saw his commitment to building prisons in these rural areas to make sure that these individuals in these rural areas did not get left behind as a part of his contract with America. So now, if they weren't left behind, that means that somebody else had to be sacrificed. And those people who were sacrificed in his contract with America were people in the inner cities,
Yeah.
the DCs, the Baltimores, the Watts, the Brooklyns, the Miamis,
Yeah.
the Houstons. And for me, I saw it all up close and personal because I was in the federal prison system. So I saw all of these brothers coming in from all of these places and everybody having the same tales.
Mhm.
You know, so for me, it was this, it was personal.
So very
Uh, and so again, that's something that it's relevant to me during this month of Black History because I think that when you look at the actions of these former presidents, it says something to who they were as individuals, but it also says something to our to who we are the people to continually evolve and to be greater than those who would try to subvert us.
You know,
Now, when it comes to Trump,
Mhm.
whew, I don't want to be long on this guy because I think I've made my feelings on him
Mhm.
relatively clear. But remember you told me that that one of the younger sisters, she took she basically took umbrage to what I was saying about him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, when she watches this episode,
Yeah.
I would want to remind her that this individual who wants to make America great again, uh, I don't know what period they're talking about or what period that she may think that he's talking about, but I would just remind her that as people, we are no more, no less than the sum of our actions throughout our lives.
Yeah.
So I would just reiterate to her that this guy, he's the same guy who the federal government brought discrimination suits against in the 70s, him and his father, because they wouldn't allow Negroes to live on their properties.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same guy who said that people who look like us that come from African nations, those places are shitholes. But you juxtapose that with his entreaty with people from Poland, immigrants. We need more people from there to basically to purify the blood of our country. So he basically he issued an invitation to immigrants from Poland, but not the immigrants from the shitholes.
Yeah.
This is the same guy who said that all Haitians, again, people who look like us, have AIDS.
Yeah.
This is the same guy
Yeah.
who wanted the Central Park Five to be executed for rape and murder, and refused to apologize to those guys even after they had gotten exonerated.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is that same guy. This is the same guy who attacked the predominantly African American players in the NFL as being sons of bitches because they would dare protest brutality against people in the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same guy who singled out places with predominantly Black populations, Baltimore, Atlanta, and said that that basically that those places are rat infested, they're crime ridden. So I just say that I can't tell people who to support, but for a Black History Month, there'll come a day down the line that all of these things, they're going to be relevant. Because as Baldwin said, America, it's going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to change. America is either going to change or it will no longer exist.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible. For one, we're not going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going, I think that this country would burn before it would go backwards. It would burn. So we're not going backwards. The country's going to change. And I would hope that when that all of these things will be relevant, because all of these things are all of these presidents, and they weren't the only three. They just the only three that mentioned that term. But then all presidents they had policies that were in direct contravention of our humanity.
Yeah.
And I think that when we start teaching Black history, the same thing that disillusioned Monique as a child, it's the same thing that disillusioned so many of our kids because they hear these things in school. But then you come out of school and you see a different reality. And it's disheartening because you're not a fool. You weren't a fool when you were a teenager. You knew something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say that once again, if you've learned nothing else about America, you should have learned the mental, the emotional, and the physical fortitude of people who look like us. Because at every instance, there have been things done to us that haven't been done to any other people, and that haven't even been done to animals.
Mhm.
but yet we're still here and we continue to evolve.
Yeah. Mhm.
So we're not going to make America great again. We may make America great one day,
Mhm.
way down the line, but there will be no again in it.
Not again.
You know, if America is made great, it'll be because of us, and
Mhm.
because of those conscious whites and those conscious people of other races who are committed to truly living in a truly democratic society, something that we've never experienced up to this date. I
Mhm.
have no idea what a democratic society looks like.
Yeah, because I mean, how many presidents we got, and all were white men, with the exception of Barack Obama.
Exactly.
So that's not equitable and no sense. And we talking about a patriarchal white society, white dominant society, is what we living under. And I mean,
So yeah, I mean, I would just say, you know, more power to Monique. I'm glad that she shared that because I think that it was important for me to hear it because I was able to connect how she felt disillusioned as a child and some of the feelings that I felt, and then some of the things that I feel now about, you know, just knowing that there's a history of uh make America great again comments. And you know, our kids will never know these things, even though their lives are directly impacted. When I was a child running the streets of DC when Ronald Reagan was elected, I never thought that this male, this white male up on a stage saying make America great again, that these comments and his policies would have such a direct impact on my life.
Mhm.
I was a child.
yeah,
So in the same way that I was a child, there are a lot of kids now who Trump's the policies that he were in, you know, that he pushed while he was in, and the people that surround him, the policies that they endorse, they're going to affect a lot of our kids. And so, and that's all a part of not just Black history or it's American history. What
American.
happens to us, it's American history.
What
But
it's interesting to me when you talk about Bill Clinton, because I just think about all these things being done in the name of whiteness, and I remember like growing up how people would tell me Bill Clinton was the only black president, the first black president, like he was black. And I was like, and it's just interesting to me how much black support that this guy had when he is responsible for the
mhm.
mass incarceration in this community. It's just amazing to me
Well, you
that
know something? My grandmother used to tell me
yeah,
that time is the father of every truth.
yeah,
And it took time for people to realize who he was.
yeah,
And I firmly believe that's why Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, because
right.
black people, they came to understand that, oh, he wasn't black after all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, time is the father of every truth.
But
So we learned, you know, we learned, and we're going to continue to learn, and we're going to continue to evolve.
what's interesting is this: he lost, but Trump won,
Yeah.
and and
Well, remember, Bill Clinton, he never lost. He served his 2 terms and moved on.
mhm.
Hillary Clinton lost.
I
So
mean Hillary Clinton lost for sure, and I think Bill Clinton legacy might have had something to do with it. However, being no Biden just now won, I'm thinking it had more to do with her being a woman than it had to do with Bill. And I,
it was
I
a
think
combination.
it was a combination. It was a combination of her being a woman and Bill. Because I think if she would have been a male in that position, she might would have been. If it would have been Bill again, we probably would have had Bill again.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a possibility, but you know, uh, history is a strange
It's
beast.
a strange beast, ain't it?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people talking back about her and that crime bill, and because you know why I know I'm not tripping, because Biden was a part of that bill. Biden was also a part of.
He was directly responsible.
He was
So I mean,
responsible as well. So
this is
he
why I say that I couldn't bring myself to go to the White House to shake his hand either.
Yeah.
There was a reason why, there's a reason why, this, it just didn't feel right. So,
Yeah. Yeah, because he definitely had a part of that that sweeping yeah, he had a part of that 90s bill too.
yeah. So, but again, I give props to the sister.
Sure.
I'm glad that she spoke her truth and, and shared her truth with us, especially about that, because I think that that's something that Black parents need to really, really look at, and they need to hone in on, because there's so much, being said now about protecting, the feelings of white kids, and it should be protected. But I think that as a country, we cannot move forward until we commit to the truth,
It's,
and if we don't, then soon there will be no America. That's just my belief. So.
yeah, I agree. Okay.
Our last point is it comes back to the sisters once again.
Okay.
Another group of sisters, man. Another group of sisters who are making America pretty much live up to the words in that Constitution. And these were the sisters that had the venture cap. They were a part of that venture capitalist firm.
Mhm.
They had that program basically. It was stricken because they said that it was discriminatory. Because it favored Black women. The person who's been most disrespected throughout history, left at the bottom. But the sister had some interesting comments. When they were interviewed, and I want to share those.
We are reaching a disparity. Unfortunately, Black women have received very few funding. Black and brown women receive about 0.39% of venture capital funding. We are again meeting a disparity and a need. And honestly, I actually have the same belief as the plaintiff. I would like a world that race-based things do not matter. But guess what? We live in America, and there are disparities that have to be solved for us to get to that.
Focus. In fact, we are not stepping back. We are leaning into this cause to make sure that women of color get the support, the funding, and grow their businesses so that they can achieve the American dream. Because that's why we're here. We are here to close this wealth gap. We are here to achieve the American dream and continue to serve communities.
Whew, man.
Yeah.
Just to see that, I would hope that because I've heard quite a few Black folks who have said that they don't prefer affirmative action and DEI type programs, and ironically, I actually fall in that group. The problem is that and it's something that I've told you before, is that, but I can't bring myself to abolish those programs until there's something in their place.
Yeah.
Because if you take away those programs, then I don't see any other means that sisters or any other people of color, Black, what otherwise,
Mhm.
I don't see how they make it into these isolated circles.
Mhm.
And it's sad because, as the sister said, we would all love to live in a world where you didn't need affirmative action, where you didn't need DEI.
Yeah.
And we need affirmative action and DEI, not because the systems themselves are racist
Mhm.
or are infected by bias, but because the people
Mhm.
or put in positions of power have these racial tendencies, or these tendencies that incline them towards being biased. So for me, when I look at these programs and I think about how, because remember when you told me, yeah, I'm a conservative, and I said I can accept that, Tate, but you're not a conservative in the same vein as the conservatives that are part of the Republican Party. You're not. I know you're not, because I know your character. and these people don't have character.
Mm-mm.
And so for me to understand the importance of the 14th Amendment, the equal protection, because that's what they're using. You have these conservative white males, they use the equal protection to now argue that they're somehow being discriminated against. But the Supreme Court has always told us that when we interpret the Constitution, we always try to interpret the Constitution in the context of what the framers had in mind when those words were written. Okay? So you ask yourself, during the Reconstruction era, when the Equal Protection Clause was written, their intent was to protect African Americans from white males. And it's ironic now that the very same individuals who were the impetus in the Equal Protection Clause having to be drafted and amended to the Constitution now are able to use it on the basis that they're being discriminated against. In some ways, it's absurd. And in some ways, you look at it and say, okay, well, maybe the country has evolved. But I don't want people to get in this celebratory mode and start patting themselves on the back, because I think that for the Supreme Court and for any federal court, when you are interpreting the Equal Protection Clause, when you have these individuals say that they're the ones who are being discriminated against now, the numbers tell me a different story.
You know, the more you talking about this, the more I sit right here and just realize that this country just cannot be built up on brokenness. Like, it's broken. Like, we keep trying to build on what's broken, and the more you keep on talking, just make me feel like, because I'm. It's like, dang, we're gonna talk about problems forever, because until we address the basis of this problem, we ain't gonna get nowhere, and the basis is gonna come around injustice. And we talked about it earlier where we said you can't talk about accountability one way, and America like to point accountability towards the black man, black man, black man, black man, black man, and not look at what it's done to create the condition that these black men and women are living in, and white men as well. So everyone is experiencing this beast that we're living in. And it gotta end. So I mean, we gotta start over. And I think we gotta start over with a truth, though. And I think that's where we at right now. I'm pretty sure we gotta start over. I can't see us like building from where we at right now. I can't see it.
Well, believe it or not, there's a direct correlation between, the attacks on stuff like DEI, affirmative action, and this whole attack on this thing they call CRT, critical race theory. Everything is geared toward absolving the United States of accepting accountability.
Yeah.
But the problem is that I come back to what those people, who the black people,
Yeah.
who say that they don't believe in the DEI and affirmative action, I always ask them, well, what is your solution? Because right now, I mean, you have to play the hand that you've been dealt.
Yeah.
And now I agree with what you said, is that I'm approaching a point to where I believe that the system is irrevocably broken, because I think that what happens is that, and this is something that a lot of the old folks told me, and I really didn't know what they were talking about, is that at every instance in this country's history where you've had some kind of significant Black progress, you've had some kind of significant white backlash. And it's not all whites doing it, but I would encourage the ones that are not doing it. I would encourage them that the madness, we can't end this madness alone.
Sure.
We can't. And as Baldwin said, unfortunately, we can't be free until they are free. And the backlash, it always comes from people who are afraid of change.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense. People holding on to wealth, and the way I see it is you cannot build on, like, this country is, like, this system is broken. I just don't think you can fix it. I don't think you fix. You got to start over.
Well, my thing is this: when you see the percentages of Black executives, whether it's in Wall Street, whether it's in Silicon Valley, even if you look to somewhere like the NFL, the NBA, right? How can you not say that there's not a problem? There's a problem.
Yeah, you got.
And for people to look at it and say that it's not, there's a fundamental disconnect. I would even argue that there's a deliberate disconnect, because you're telling me now not to believe my lying eyes.
Yeah, that's what they telling you. That's exactly what they're telling you.
And then to make it even more absurd, you are going to use a provision of the Constitution that was meant to protect the people from you. Now claim grievance. Now, I want you to think about that for a second.
Yeah.
I want to close out on this. But I want people to think about this, though, in closing. I want them to think about this. Because people always use this term, when it comes to, Black people are not victims. I never said we were victims. We survivors. We've survived. Think of American excellence. Think of us. Because we've had to be excellent at every turn in order to just exist. People constantly tell you, you're Black people, you always claim in victimhood, right? But the very same conservative white men who push this agenda are claiming that they're what?
Victims.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying? You see how this thing works?
I see how it's going.
You see how it works?
I see how it's going, and that's what made me come to my conclusion. Because when you kept talking, that just made me say, you know what? This circle is getting it's a circle, because to come back to white men feeling guilty, and I could see their point, and that's what made me say you got to start over. You have to start over, because race is not a real God. It's not a natural concept. It's man-made concept. Racism, it's a man-made concept. And until we accept that, because the country was built it was not built on that concept. This country was not built on that concept. So the fact that we got these concepts inside of our Constitution, it ain't gonna work. It's not gonna work. We gotta start all over, and maybe acknowledge the Constitution, but we have to build a colorless system almost. However, we can't be colorblind. And it's like, you know what? I guess 500 years ago, this country was predominantly Native American Black. And now it's not that so much. We're not the majority. So I guess you talking about solving the injustice, and it's just like, how do you even address this monster that we talking about, honestly? And it's a big monster.
Let me just say this, because I think that I can end every episode with James Baldwin.
Yeah, go ahead.
But Baldwin said that every great empire in history was undone by time. In that time, it ate away at all of their false doctrines and the pillars on which those false doctrines stood. And what we're seeing in real time is that time is eating away at the false notion of white supremacy. And the thing, and I won't say that it worries me, it doesn't worry me at this point, but I think that we're dealing with the people who are so hell-bent on maintaining that cloak, or that false cloak of supremacy, that they may try to destroy us all to hold on to it.
Yep.
And the hope is that there is enough of us and conscious white folks in you know, conscious folks of other ethnicities to stand between that. But I firmly believe that we are in the days of when the doctrines, the false doctrines, they're eroding before our very eyes.
Mhm.
So when you see people challenging things such as DEI, such as affirmative action, right?
Mhm.
For me, it comes from a sense of paranoia.
Mhm.
And I think that we have to be mindful of what's going on.
Mhm.
We have to be particularly mindful of what's going on from a historical perspective. We have to understand this. And if we understand it, then we'll know how to combat it.
Mhm.
You know, because it's going to take all hands on deck.
All hands.
Because people, you know, these people are committed and these people are powerful. So I would just hope that, you know, people understood that. And but they understood the truth of what Baldwin spoke. And it's going to take all hands on deck. And you know, in that regard, tell our viewers, I bid you good night.
Yeah.
I thank them for tuning in.
Yeah.
If you like the content, once again, you know, you can visit us on Instagram, on YouTube, you subscribe, and we're going to continue to try to push quality content out and, you know, keep you in the know.
Okay.
And on that note, my brother, I'm sign off.
I understood. I understood.
All understood, man.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. And until next time, be safe and be conscious. I won't say stay woke. All right.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. E.